I'll begin this commentary by looking at two aerial ball incidents. In the first, an Indian player raises the ball to a receiver in the circle, and as the ball is received, he is closed down on and an attempt is made to tackle him. The ball runs loose and then he blocks off the Indian player, which obstructing him. There is an advantage there, so the umpire allows play to continue and the ball eventually goes out of play. At the apex of the flight of the ball, the Pakistani player was slightly less than 5 meters from the Indian receiver. As the ball is received, he's within 2 meters and still closing, and before the ball is in control, he is within playing distance of the ball and attempting to position to tackle for it. This is clearly an encroaching offence, but the umpire saw no reason to intervene. In the second incident, a Pakistani player lofts the ball trying to reach one of his own forwards. The ball is intercepted by an Indian player who is closer to the ball and is the initial receiver here. As he brings the ball to ground, the Pakistani player closes in and attempts to play at the ball. I think this is an encroaching offence that has been penalised. I don't see any other reason for the umpire to intervene. And here we have the first of a number of obstruction incidents. The Indian player approaches the circle, turns and backs into the Pakistan defender, who in turn turns round and backs into the Indian attacker. The ball runs free and eventually goes off for a 23-meter ball. The umpire apparently saw no reason to intervene in this fracas. Here we have a right side player shielding the ball along the line and shunting, sidestepping with it. This is obstruction. Blocking off his opponent from the ball with his body. Eventually he goes over the ball and runs into his opponent. But the umpire appears to have given the Indian side a free hit, presumably for a foot contact. A left side Pakistan player, in a similar manner, bringing the ball down, overruns it, starts to lead it, then has a complete 180-degree turn and backs into his opponents. Nothing called by the umpire. A similar thing in the circle by an Indian player along the baseline, shielding the ball, protecting it with his body, a complete turn and back into his opponent. That should have been a penalty stroke. The shielding continues until the Pakistani players manage to knock the ball out of play. A sideline ball is awarded to India. Similar again on the Pakistani left flank. The Pakistani player manages to get himself trapped against his sideline, shields the ball, shunts with it, turns and backs into his opponents. There is, I think, eventually a stick tackle by an Indian player, which is why a free ball was awarded to Pakistan. The obstruction was ignored. This player has no intention at all of taking on his opponents. He turns and protects the ball, eventually manages to get himself trapped against the sideline, and the ball is put out of play for a Pakistan sideline ball. Again, the obstructions are ignored. But ball body contact is not ignored no matter what the circumstances. I have no idea what the Pakistani player on the ground, what offence he is supposed to have committed. It looks more like dangerous play to me than an offence by the Pakistani player. And then we have this casual forcing of a foot. The Indian player doesn't even pretend to want to carry on playing. Automatically assumes that there was going to be the award of a penalty for ball foot contact, even though this action is supposed to be penalised under other rules. This Pakistani player delights the crowd by shunting along the sideline, back into his own corner, and then shields the ball for as long as he can before whipping it out again. That action should have been penalised through the penalty corner. There was nothing accidental about the shielding and the obstruction which accompanied it. Again here, no attempt to take on the player who just stands and shields the ball. Indian player manages to poke it away off the sideline by jabbing at the ball between his feet. Obstruction ignored, sideline ball to Pakistan. This Pakistani player tries to force a football contact, regains possession of the ball, turns and backs into the defender. Obstruction. The umpire allowed play to continue. Here a Pakistani player obstructs an Indian player and then body blocks him, giving a third party obstruction, and the umpire penalised that obstruction. It was the only occasion in the first quarter when an obstruction offence was penalised. So the umpires do know that there's an obstruction rule and what obstruction looks like. The now standard turning and shielding the ball back into the opponent and rolling past him. Turning on the ball is okay as a tactic, but it should not be done when you're almost in contact with the opponent. This player turns and shunts along the sideline with the ball until he manages to get the Pakistani player positioned on the baseline side so that he can then make an edge hit with his reverse stick. This is of course obstruction. Hockey matches between India and Pakistan at one time used to be displays of dazzling stick work and superb short passing. That is no longer the case. Both teams have been bullied into taking up a European style of game which does not suit their character or characteristics. The Indians have adapted to it better than the Pakistanis have so far, who are not playing their natural game. For my part, I used to enjoy watching top level hockey. I don't anymore.